Hello Internet, my name's Casey and I'm here to upset you. I think I'm gonna do a pretty good job of it too. So, it's a super windy day out here, but I'm gonna explain to you my new project and we're gonna get to the answer portion of the question and answer that I started like 2-3 weeks ago and haven't had time to get caught up on yet. So, let's get going. Okay, so we're here in my junkyard, as you can see by all the junk. And right here we have my 1948 V8 powered Willys, which we all know as the Monster Jeep. And I know when I bought this, I told a whole lot of you that my favorite thing about it was that it's done and I don't have to touch it. It's just fire it up and go. Well, that was until I came across this 1994 Toyota landcruiser 80 series rolling chassis. See where I'm going with this? It's gonna happen. So I absolutely love driving this Jeep. It just puts a huge smile on my face anytime I drive it, even though I only drive it on the Forest Service roads and I trailer it back and forth. Now, as you could probably imagine, with the super short wheelbase and the welded rear end and the spool in the front end and the super springy, bouncy leaf spring suspension, wow, it is windy. This does not have the best road manners of any vehicle out there. So I've been thinking of what I can do to change that. It is like crazy windstorm out here. So I want to change that and make this a much more street-friendly drivable vehicle. Now, to make that happen, what I've been looking at doing is extending this wheelbase 6 inches forward in the front and 6 inches backward in the back, giving this a 12-inch longer wheelbase. Then replacing these leaf springs with a coil setup and links front and rear. Now, all this is going to be quite a bit of work, and I was totally okay with that. It's going to be a fun project. Then I spotted this landcruiser chassis on Facebook Marketplace, did a quick little bit of research, and realized that this is a 12.4-inch longer wheelbase than my Willys currently is. It was meant to be. And since it's the 80 series, it already has the beefier high pinion axles in it. It's got 30 spline inner and outer axles. It's got radius arm suspension with coils, sway bars, and a factory steering setup. 4-link rear suspension with a sway bar, coils, and a track bar. A solid tubular frame in here ready to go. And the best part is I can buy off-the-shelf parts for all the suspension, all the steering, and know that I have something that can go safely and comfortably 70 miles an hour on the highway and not just be hoping that I got the geometry correct on something I built myself in the shop. Because that is my goal, is to have this Jeep that I can cruise right down the highway at highway speed just like everyone else without being afraid that I'm going to die if I sneeze at the wrong time. Then get off on the trail, do some wheeling, have a fully capable vehicle, and cruise it back home. I'm not trying to build the ultimate rock crawler. I'm trying to build just a fun, can drive it wherever I want, wheel it and have some fun vehicle, and I think that's what I'm gonna get out of this. So I'm gonna do a build series out of this whole little project. It'll probably be 1 video a week, hopefully, depending on the schedule, on getting this chassis ready to go, and then getting this body and drivetrain swapped into it, putting it all together, making it work, and then going and having some fun with it. What that timeline's gonna look like, I have no idea. It all depends on my schedule. And since I own a towing company, I don't have a schedule. So I'm just gonna work on it as much as I can, try to build a cool vehicle out of it, learn a few things, end up with something cool, and have a lot of fun at the same time. So now that I've got the landcruiser purists and the Jeep Willys purists all fired up over mixing the two together, let's get to the answer portion of the question and answer I did a few weeks ago. So since most of the questions are about the tracks and the track Jeep, let's start there. The first and biggest question I get is, did I build them or did I buy them? And if I bought them, where? And no, I did not build these. I bought these off of Facebook Marketplace. They're the American track truck brand, and the model is the Dominator XLs. The XL stands for extra long. That puts a much bigger footprint on the ground than your average track setup, which gives you a lot more flotation, but also makes it a lot harder on the steering system, which is why I've had to beef mine up so heavily. Now, as far as cost, I'm not 100% sure because I bought mine used, and you're gonna find used prices all over the map out there. New, I think this set's gonna be in the $13,000, $14,000 range. Then you're gonna spend another $1,000, $1,500 on beefing up your steering, transmission cooler, all that stuff. So if you wanna go all brand new, you're gonna be at least around in the $16,000 range to set something like this up, on top of the vehicle itself. Now onto the steering itself. What did you do to it? Well, I didn't actually do anything to it myself. Nate did pretty much all this. We put a 1-ton tie rod kit in it that eliminates the inverted Y setup that these things come with stock. Gives you the bigger 1-ton tie rod and drag link. And then Nate built a hydro assist system that he ported and tapped the stock box that runs this hydraulic ram that he built the mount for and did all this stuff, so that when I turn back and forth, this ram pushes straight on the tie rod and turns the tracks back and forth, which takes almost all the pressure off of the drag link, the sector shaft, and the steering box itself. It also acts as about the world's strongest steering stabilizer. But these things take so much force to turn when you have that big of a footprint on the ground that we were still overheating the steering system. So we added this big steering cooler here, which is a transmission cooler we're using as a steering cooler since it uses transmission fluid. We also have an actual transmission cooler here, plus stuff back in there's a big oversized aluminum radiator. And with all that up front, I didn't have enough room to actually put the grill back on, which is why this Jeep doesn't have the grill in it. And yes, even though we are out in the snow, out in like 0-degree weather, everything still gets that hot. And that's because when you're pushing through that deep snow up into here, you're just at a constant hard load on everything, and it's burning fuel like crazy, you're working the engine like crazy, working the transmission like crazy, it gets hot. Another question is, did you have to change the gearing? Did you have to change the axles? What do you have to do to the brakes to run the tracks? And the answer is, nope, you don't have to do anything. When you're running tracks, this is not your new tire size like a lot of people would think. This is your new tire size. So this Jeep normally runs a 34-inch tire. This drive wheel in here happens to be 17 inches. So you basically get a 2-to-1 reduction when you put the tracks on, just because the tiny size of that drive wheel, which is basically your new tire size. So this Jeep has a 2-to-1 transfer case in it. So in high range with the tracks on, my gearing is essentially the same as in low range with the tires on it. My speedometer's off by exactly half. It says I'm doing 40 miles an hour, I'm really doing 20 miles an hour. Which brings us to top speed with the tracks on. I believe they're rated for 50 miles an hour. But with the gearing I have in this Jeep, I can only do about 35, 40 before this engine's just screaming at the red line and I can't go any faster. The tracks though are capable of going quite a bit faster. Now how do they hold up on the pavement? Well, I've driven on a lot of pavement and we're still not even worn into the tracks at all. There's a couple spots where I've chunked out some rubber from spinning them on rocks and stuff like that, but that's to be expected. This is the second season on these tracks. I bought them used. They were 1 season old. As you can see, they still look brand new. All my bogey wheels still look brand new, except for one somewhere is starting to chunk up a little bit. So as far as how long they last, I don't know. It's gonna be totally on how you use it. I use them really, really hard, drive on the pavement quite a bit, drive on gravel roads quite a bit, and they're holding up really well. So I think they last quite a while. Which brings us to maintenance on the tracks. And so far, as far as maintenance item, this bogey wheel that's starting to lose a little bit of its rubber needs to be changed out. That's the only maintenance thing I've had to do, other than adjusting the tension once, which you adjust the tension very simply by loosening that nut, turning this one in, doing the same thing on the other side, and that tensions the track. Oh, I know another one. What stops the tracks from flipping all the way around and going up and hitting the fenders? And the answer is nothing. They make a kit, just like I think every manufacturer of these track setups makes some sort of rotation limiter kit. The ones for these tracks bolt on right here to this bottom ball joint nut, and then there's a bracket that sits right here, runs to each side and limits the rotation. You can adjust it to where you stop it right before the track hits this. But I haven't done that. I haven't had any problem with the tracks wanting to flip around or rotate. And I think that's a big part because I have the XLs front and rear and they're so much longer that they're really stable and don't want to flip and rotate like a shorter set would do. Oh, here's a good one. My ice scrapers. Do they work? I don't know. I've not been in that same weird type of snow condition again since that happened. I don't think I've ever been in that type of snow condition again before that even, where we're in 4 feet of snow, it's 25 degrees outside, and it's raining water, and the top of the snow is just soaking it up like a sponge and then freezing to everything it touches, which froze it in there. I have been in some deeper snow where this was definitely piled up here and pushing the snow out, and it was clear behind it, so I'm assuming they would work just fine if we got back into that situation. But as far as that one specific situation where I had that problem, I don't know. Another one. Why don't you put big old huge fender flares on the side so snow doesn't kick up on the window? I mean, I could, but I don't like the way they look, so I don't. Okay, out of the wind for a second. The bar on the dash. I get so many questions about the bar on the dash. What is it? What does it do? It literally does nothing. It's just, look at sheet metal screwed into the pillar right here and goes across. I guess it's a grab handle for getting in, but it's not even held in by that much. It was there when I bought the Jeep. I got a cool little thing here to mount the camera to, and it's still there. That's what that bar is. It literally serves no purpose. As far as other modifications to the Jeep, there's nothing. It's stock. It's open differential. It's a Dana 35 in the rear end, a Dana 30 in the front end. It's got a rough country 4-inch lift on it, just like every other basic Jeep Cherokee does. There's nothing else to it other than the upgraded steering and the tracks. Oh, except for that one thing over on the passenger side fender that a lot of people ask about. Let's go look at that. Everybody wants to know what that thing on my passenger side fender is. It is quite literally just this. It's a piece of receiver tubing welded to the bumper, and I take one of my receiver mount winches and I stick it in there. It's nothing fancy at all. It's a winch holster. That's all it is. But why do I put my winch there instead of on the back? Well, that's because 90% of the time I use the yanking rope to pull people out of the back, and it's much handier to just have this pintle hitch in the back where I can hook the rope right up to and not have the winch in the way. So, winch holster. Okay, enough about the Jeep. Let's move on to the next one. And that would be my truck. And I know this question hasn't been asked yet, but it's about to, and that is what happened to the camper shell. And I took it off because I'm going to change around how the whole back of this truck works. And yes, that rooftop tent over there on that truck is going to be part of it. And why haven't I told you guys about the rooftop tent, even though it was on this truck and now it's on that truck? That's because I'm using it for a while before I tell you if I like it or not. Spoiler alert, I think I like it. Oh, also, why'd you put the 37s back on? Well, that ties into the whole tent and missing camper shell thing. And once the parts come in to complete that, you'll see why. Okay, one of the next biggest things I get asked about is this display in the corner of my windshield in my truck. Well, it is gauges. It's nothing more than electronic gauges. Since I'm towing all the time and I'm in the mountains all the time, I want to be able to watch my exhaust gas temperature and my transmission fluid temperature. Those two numbers are very, very important, so I like to be able to keep an eye on them. So I have gauges. This also has another speedometer number right here that I can adjust for when I have the 37s on it, like right now, or when I have the 33s on it, the heavy rated ones, or stock tires or whatever. I can adjust this up and down very easily to be accurate when my normal stock one is not. It's just a lot more gauges that show me a lot more information than what the dash of the truck actually does. So we're back in the shop now to hide from the wind a little bit. It is going crazy out there. And to finish up on some of the questions, and I did forget one track question that I got quite a bit of, and that is, are the tracks corner specific? I mean, do they have to go in the same place? Can you rotate them? Anything like that. They are a left and right side. It doesn't matter front to back, even though now I do have those extra drive sprockets on the rear tracks. So they are now, I guess, kind of corner specific, but I could still swap front to back on each side, just no problem. Can't swap them between sides. How long have you been in business? I've been in business for, last October was 10 years, so we're at 10.5 years now. How did you get into towing and recovery? Well, this actually will answer two questions. The first one, how did I get into towing and recovery? I started out in heavy haul. I had big trucks do the heavy haul, oversized loads, heavy equipment, multiple axle, Jeeps, boosters, all that stuff. That's what I always did, and I started out in that. And from the heavy haul, I got into heavy towing because I had the equipment to haul very heavy and broke down things. So then I got more and more into the heavy towing, and I specialized in the super heavy towing, the trucks that have 20,000 pounds on the front axle that your standard heavy wrecker can't legal the weights of. I had the equipment to do it. So that was kind of my specialty, was the super heavy towing. Then when we were moving up here to Oregon from Northern California, I had my one heavy haul setup, and while we were driving it up here, I had a trailer hooked to the back with everything we owned in it, and it caught on fire and burned to the ground right there on the side of the road. Luckily, I was able to get the trailer unhooked and we saved everything we owned that was hooked to the back, but that was a horrible, horrible night, and not one I want to repeat anytime soon. That also threw a pretty big wrench in all my plans up here in Oregon because everything I planned on was heavy tow, but I just lost my heavy tow vehicle. So once the dust or smoke settled from that, my first thought was, well, it looks like I'm going to go get another big, huge loan and try to buy another heavy wrecker truck. But then when I tried to do that, that idea got shot down pretty quick, because then I realized that now that I've started my new Oregon LLC, shut down my California LLC, I'm technically a brand new business, even though I've been in business 7, 8 years at that point. And no bank was going to lend me that kind of money with me being a brand new business and technically having no business history. But I still had to work somehow. So there was a light duty wrecker, a twin line 2-wheel drive wrecker for sale at auction. I bought it and I started doing light duty towing stuff to stay busy and get going until I could figure out how to buy another heavy wrecker. The only problem with that was the light duty towing took off, and I got really busy with it and was doing really good with it. And it was really hard to look at going out and getting some big, huge, high interest rate loan because I'm a new business when this was doing so good and I didn't have any loans at all in the deal. So we just stuck with light duty. So that question kind of explains how I got into towing and recovery and why I have heavy in the name and don't have any heavy wreckers. As far as the off-road recovery part of it, I've been off-roading my whole life, had Jeeps my whole life, and doing recovery off-road, that's always been a thing. And now I know that's gonna lead to another question, which is, are you gonna get another heavy wrecker? And I'd like to. But that's a really big loan to go out and get, and I really kind of like not having any big, huge loans right now, but it's definitely something I would like to do. It's definitely a goal to get back into that. We'll see how it goes. I do want to, though. Next question, do you have any employees or have you ever had any employees? No, I do not right now. I have in the past when I had the big trucks and the heavy haul stuff, I did. I don't now. When you see people out with me, it's just friends who I'm able to grab and drag with me to hold a camera, or most of the time it's actually a customer or someone with the customer holding the camera and filming for me because I'm on my own. That actually leads very well into the next question. Are you hiring or do you plan to hire any employees? No, I'm not hiring any employees right now, and as far as if I plan to, no, I do not plan to, but that doesn't mean anything because a lot of my plans go out the window real quick. With what I'm doing right now, it's really not conducive to having employees. I don't have a whole towing company or other business running separately than what I'm doing, so there's not a full-time job for someone to be doing. It's very much I can sit here all day with nothing to do, talking to the camera like I am right now, and then at 9 o'clock at night, the phone rings for a 1-2 hour recovery job. It doesn't really work with having an employee and them trying to have a life and all that too, because there is no consistent schedule here, and I do kind of like just doing my own thing. So for now, no plans to hire anyone. And that's where my battery died, so that probably means I've been talking too long. So I ran up here to the truck to grab another one, and it's so windy out there that I really don't want to walk back down to the shop. So I'm super excited about that landcruiser Willys project. I know the landcruiser purists are not going to like that I'm putting a Jeep body on a landcruiser, and the Jeep and Willys purists are not going to like that I'm putting Toyota stuff underneath a Willys. But to me, I think it's the best of both worlds for the things I want to do, so that's what I'm going to do. But that product's gonna have to wait just a little bit to get started because I have a very roadkill vice grip garage style adventure coming up, and of course it's got a little twist to it, and Cascade Heavy Rescue is a little bit of clue to what kind of twist it has. So I'm actually flying out at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning, so you guys will see that adventure coming up too. Then we'll get started on the Willys Land Cruiser project. So I'm gonna go get packed up, get some sleep, get on an airplane in the morning. We'll see you guys next time.